Hello, and welcome back to, the Black Bear Prepper channel. Today we're going to be talking about your maintenance on your Mini-14s. Now, I live in California. Everybody knows I do. In an undisclosed location, but we shoot a lot of 3-gun. I've been shooting 3-gun for a while now. I am no expert by any means, but I do use the Mini-14. This happens to be my son's Mini-14. I shoot a stainless steel version, so it's a little hard sometimes to kind of see where everything goes on those. So I like the blued versions because it kind of lets me help you guys understand where the different wear points are on the Mini-14. Now, just right off the bat, this is not a replacement for any kind of training. You are to do this at your own risk. I do recommend that you take a class on how to do these kind of things, but this is just a refresher, kind of helping in the future. So we're going to check this guy to make sure it's clear. We're going to go ahead, rack it back, check that there's nothing in the chamber. And you guys can't see that from there, but there is nothing in the chamber. And there's no magazine, and you can actually see through the bottom of the gun. Again, why I like the Mini-14s. Now, kind of just a little rant on why I like the Mini-14s. For California, we have all kinds of crazy laws for shooting ARs and everything else. But I actually do like the Mini-14 better. I'm a big fan of the Mini-14. I like how they work. I like how reliable they are, and I like how simple they are. And how easy they are to clean. They tend to be a little bit more reliable because the gas system up front is self-cleaning, and you can actually run these guns completely dry, and they will run just fine. Now, do I recommend that? No, but if you're in an area where you have tons of sand or tons of dirt all the time, and maybe it's just going to be thrown in the back of a truck, maybe basic oiling is all you need just to kind of keep the thing from wearing, but if you're only going to shoot 5 or 10 rounds, it's just like my carry pistols. I run them almost completely dry because they only need to run for 5 to 10 shots, hopefully less. So when it comes to these guys, for my competition, I do oil them a little bit more, but I love the fact that even this gun we actually picked up, probably hadn't been shot in a couple years, and went and ran a tournament with it. It's got 2 tournaments on it. It doesn't have any problems at all so far. So kind of a cool idea. Just so you kind of see what's on the guns, we do trigger jobs to them. We add a slide release, mow rod, or half a dozen other names you have for these. I recommend buying the aluminum guys. The barrel stabilizers are real cool. Adding some attachment points for a sling, and then, like I said, basic trigger jobs, a 30 millimeter scope rings, and the primary arms AC SS reticle, 3 to 6s on there. I really like the places we go to. We're maxed out at 4 power scopes. So these are kind of really great. They rock for what we're using them for, and I really like that. So let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to do, like I said, make sure it's in the back position. We're going to go ahead and slide the bolt forward. We're going to take a tool. You can use a bullet if you're out in the field, which is, again, why I really like this. Remember, this is the same action as the Grand. I started shooting Grands when I was a real little kid, and they were the coolest thing ever. I loved that little ping at the very end. I was always afraid to get my thumb stuck in there, but luckily I was taught how to do it right, and I didn't even realize that was not ever an issue because I learned how to do it right. So then one of my favorite guns to shoot was the M14, M1A type rifles nowadays, and I couldn't afford one of those because they're super expensive. So I bought an M1 carbine, and that M1 carbine ended up going full auto, so we had to switch that out, and we ended up buying Mini-14s. So that was back when AR-15s were banned, but kind of some history there. So what you're going to do, I like a little number 2 Phillips screwdriver. You're going to stick it in the trigger guard. You're going to pop the trigger guard just like that. Please do not pull with the tool. It's hard on it. We're just going to pull, and the whole trigger assembly and everything pops right out. Now you will notice most of the time these are extremely clean guns internally. There's only really one spot that ever really gets dirty. We're going to go ahead and pull the stock up and out, and we'll set the stock off to the side. We're going to go ahead and put the gun in our cradle here, and there's a couple parts we want to take out right off the bat. So these guns, again, very, very simple. Not a lot of parts involved. We're going to pull the spring forward, and we want to kind of cup it with our hand so it's facing away from our face so we don't get any, the spring pops. It's not going to come towards us at all. this spring, if it does come off, has a tight side and a loose side on this guy. I don't think you ever have to take it out of this guy, but if you do, remember, it goes into the side where it actually sticks. So, ooh, that's bleeding. That's a sharp spot. You're actually going to be able to take this guy and it actually sticks in one side and it won't stick on the other. So you'll just kind of fall out of this side of the spring. It will suck into this side of the spring. Kind of a cool thing. So, and also, just a reminder, and we're going to remind you of this again, this guy goes at the bottom of the pin that goes in here. So we're going to go ahead and set this guy off to the side. Then we can take our bolt. Now this is where it's going to be a little hard for me to show you guys. Okay, that was the pin that just fell out. So there's a little pin and a little groove here that cups the spring. Now in your older minis, that does not exist. It just has a hole there, and it doesn't matter which way you flip the spring, it just goes directly into the hole. But that's probably the only difference in the new versus old with some of the real mechanisms. Once we do this, we can go ahead and slide our bolt backwards. So we're going to slide it backwards, and we're going to slide it up and out. So that takes care of the whole charging handle. Now our bolt, you'll see right here, has a little groove right here. And this is, you're just going to, you'll just have to look at it. You'll see a little kind of squarish groove that goes upwards on the, right here on the receiver. And that allows you have to get this guy to slide all the way back to that point. There is a little notch here in the very back that has to line up with that square, and when you do that, it allows you to pop it up and slide it out. Okay? So once that happens, then you can go ahead and you can disassemble this part. This is usually probably your dirtiest part of the whole gun. The reason is because this is where all of the dirt collects. Now on an AR, where it all collects back in the main chamber, on a mini-14, it is actually, the gas system is right here. So this is a self-cleaning gas system, which means it has a floating piston that's fixed. So you want it to move. So if you have that movement in there, don't put any Loctite or anything else like that. It's supposed to move. Then you're going to have the bolt, or the charging handle here, will go kind of into and it slides in, and if you fix that, it has a hard time, it will actually have cycling issues. So you want it to be loose. This is the area we want to clean most. This is where all of your fouling will happen, right here at the piston. Now, on the newer blued guns, you get a stainless steel piston, okay? Now that fixed piston on some of the older guns will be blued, and it will tend to rust. You'll get mini-14 lockup. You go pull the gun out of the safe after 6 months, and the damn thing doesn't cycle. So if you do have one of the old blue ones, you can change that part out to the silver one, or the stainless steel one, and that will help a massive amount and pretty much eliminates the problem. So if you don't have a stainless steel gun, I highly recommend changing out that part. You can send it into Ruger, and they'll usually change it out for you. You can get the part yourself and change it out, but make sure you're following all the directions. This gas piston, or the gas block area, never has to be removed. It's self-cleaning. There's 60,000 PSI coming through there. You can't clean it any better than it cleans itself. Don't need to spray any lube down it. It's clean, trust me. Now around the piston, we want to just sit there. I usually, right about now, we'll sit here, take a little Hoppy's number 9. Now, I always put it in these little spray bottles because I hate getting it. I don't know why Hoppy's can't get the traditional stuff, which is the cheap stuff, in the bottles like this. I just pour them and refill them into a little squirt bottle. And I just squirt around there and let it just set. So, let it set there. I squirt in here, let it set in there, kind of get it ready. And I just set that off to the side. Once I've done that, now I can get the bolt out. Now this is where on scope guns, this can be kind of difficult. So if you try to pull the bolt out right now, it will usually hit the scope and will actually not come all the way out, okay? And it tends to be very difficult. On a non-scope gun, you can pull it out without removing the scope and everything else. You don't need to remove the scope on these as long as you've made sure that you've moved your scope back far enough to where it clears this area here. So if your scope is too far forward, a lot of times you'll end up bumping into that, and you'll have to remove your scope to get it apart. This is not a very dirty part though. You can go 500, 600, 1,000 rounds without cleaning this bolt at all. You can leave it just where it is and lube it up a little bit where the extractor is, and you're good to go. We're going to go ahead and remove that. And the way we do that is on the other side, we have your bolt hold open or your slide catch. We're going to go ahead and pop that loose. And the way we do that, now on ours, we put the little bolt, it releases on there. It just unscrews. This is why I've always liked this, because it makes it real simple. And everybody goes, why do you still have the screw in there? I did these a long time ago. The screw works perfect, and it's stainless steel, never goes bad. I always recommend having a little magnetic tray here. Doesn't really work on the... And then I just take a screwdriver. There is a notch on the plate here. I just hit that plate and just pop it. Once I have the plate off, like I said, it does have a little notch there. I just stick my screwdriver in there and just knock it off. Then I can go ahead and take out the rest of the parts. Now this is going to be upside down for you guys, sorry. But there's a little plunger here, which operates it, and the actual catch itself. So in this area here, I'm just going to go ahead and push on that, and it kind of pops itself out. Swiggle that thing out, and that guy comes right out. Okay? And you can see where I drilled a little hole there, And then I pull the plunger out, and it's a little hard with the scope right in the way, but it will bend out of the way and pull right out of there. And I take the little plunger with the spring, and it will be stuck on one side and not the other. So remember, make sure you go and leave it on the side. I leave that on and don't touch it. Set it in my pan. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Then I can come back over to my bolt. Like I said, you can get them out. I've had pretty good luck getting them out. It's a little tricky, but I've had pretty good luck getting bolts out without the scope on guns. I've shot guns without scopes for a long time. And so you now can come here and wiggle the bolt, and it just kind of rotates. So there's nobody behind me, guys, by the way, so not that I can shoot anybody without the bolt in the gun, but you're actually going to rotate the bolt up and slide it out, and it'll just kind of pop itself out. So once you've done that, you're ready to start cleaning the gun. I am a big fan of the snakes for most of my cleaning. So every 500, 600 rounds, I'll put a swab down there with some, bore cleaner on there. I'll sit there, run a bunch of patches through it and clean it out real good. But most of the time, after every shoot, just cleaning out the bore with a snake. These drop down the barrel and you just pull them from the back to the front. That's a real easy way of doing it. It kind of makes it simple. So once you've done that, you're all set with cleaning out the bore. I don't think it's that big a deal. I never have cleaned out the bore a ton. I come in here to the trigger guard, or the trigger assembly here. I make sure all my pins are still in good area. Remember, all the pins, and there's no reason to take this apart. This whole thing comes out, which I really like, so if you ever get a stuck primer or something that falls in there, some dirt that falls in there, wash it out in the creek and put it back in. You're ready to go. Clean it out when you get home. These are awesome trigger systems. The trigger jobs on these are really easy. There's lots of videos on how to do those. You can have them done. Now, like I said, the new ones do have stainless steel internals on them, which makes it really nice. They tend not to rust up like the older versions. Now, when you take this out, just remember that you want to leave it cocked and the safety on for them to work. So the safety in the backwards position and the hammer down. So you want it in firing position, so we'll go back into the gun. And just, I take, some Lucas lube with a little bit of, and synthetic car oil, and I mix it 50-50, and I put it in there. Mobile 1 is usually what I use, so Mobile 1 and the Lucas gun oil. I'm not saying it's anything special, but I mix those two together, and I just hit a dab on all the little areas where it's going to hit. That works really well. I'll run it a couple times to make sure I'm good, and I set it off to the side. Doesn't need to have anything more than that. When it comes to the bolt, I'm going to wipe it down real good. Now, if you have a bolt that is the blued version, you can see where the wear points are. I'm going to help, hopefully you guys can see this. But the little red tip here I'm going to show you. Right across the top of the very back of the bolt is a wear point. I put a drop of oil there and I just wipe it on with my fingers. On the very front, where the 2 locking lugs are, I'll sit there and put a little on there and wipe around with my fingers, okay, on both sides. This guy does not need to be lubed. The actual pivot point here doesn't need to be lubed, but we can put a little daub on there and just wipe around if you're only